On June 9th, Anthropic released the most capable model the public has ever been allowed to test, and only 3 days later, the US government forced it to be switched off. We're not talking about paused, we're not talking about rate limited, we're not talking about with new constraints, just completely off. It's still hard to believe to this day, but in this video, we're going to get into what Fable is, why it was switched off, and what it means for you. 19 days. That's how long we were wondering when Fable 5 would come back. Some people were refreshing, just seeing, is it up to date? Is it up to date? Some people even made websites just to wonder when it's going to get back up. But still, we had no idea when it was going to come back. So I'll just give you guys some anatomy of what Mythos actually is. And if you've used any of the Claude models, it's a bit straightforward. You have Haiku, which is the lower end of things. You have Sonnet, Opus, and now we have a higher class called Mythos. This was kind of that dangerous model that some people were scared of, almost like the boogeyman in Anthropic. They were saying it's so powerful, all this hype was built up around it. We don't know if we could even control it. But now it's just right in our terminals as Fable. So the thing to know about the Fable model is it's really an edited version of Mythos. When you're training these models, you probably heard a lot of news come out like, oh, this AI model was so powerful, it tried to escape. This AI model refused this instruction. And when they're doing that, they're actually testing these base models just to see how compliant they are, how safe they are before they do release them to the public. That's why when you ask ChatGPT or Anthropic or Claude or any of these models to do something like, let's say, make fun of somebody, it'll just refuse you. It'll say, hey, that's not in my programming, that's not in my training. Because before they release this model, they tweak it to make it safe for other people. And in this case, it was so advanced and they couldn't necessarily prove that it was safe. They actually had to roll back the model, and that's when the US came and it was just like, yeah, we're not only do we not want this out, we don't want this out because it might get into the hands of our competitors, it might get into the hands of our adversaries. So there was some discrepancy there if it was because some of these models in other countries are being reverse engineered. Some people think that's what's going on. So if we do release a model like this, there's some fears that people are going to go back and try to get into it and just kind of make this same tier for themselves without going through the original training that Anthropic had to go to make it. And another thing about Fable is that they work to make it more affordable. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's the cheapest, most affordable thing that you can be using right now. I have some other videos on how to set up your own locally ran agents if you are looking for that. But compared to Mythos preview, which was in April, it's less than half of the price there. You can see it was at 25 per million tokens, and now it's at $10 per million tokens. So you can kind of see the jumps here depending on if you do want to use the latest and greatest model. If you are still looking at Opus and wanted to be concerned there, you can see it's like double the price of that. And if you're not getting double the output, some people are looking at it that way. And then again, Haiku remains more affordable. So again, when we're talking about just the different tiers of the models, you can see they split them up like that to make them more accessible depending on the task. So, for some history of the initial release of Fable, on June 9th was the launch day. Everybody was excited. We finally get access to Mythos. Some people didn't even have time to really go and do anything with it because it was only live for 3 days. 3 days it was out here. People were testing, people were building, getting the hype up, the typical new model AI behavior. But 3 days later, it was gone. So meanwhile, at Amazon, they were red teaming this model, not seeing just what it could do, but what it could be talked into. So a lot of this is prompt engineering, context overloading. Sometimes people would put these weird characters and ASCII just into the machines, so it would kind of get past these safeguards. And when you have these very capable models, even getting a little bit past these safeguards could have very big consequences. So I think that's really what scared the people in Washington and kind of made them walk back this decision. And like we were saying, 3 days later, on June 12th, they issued the U.S. Department of Commerce. They issued export controls aimed just at this model. So it's really just to prevent foreign countries from having access to this product. But since we can use it through an API, and it's very difficult for this company Anthropic to be able to very finely track exactly who is using it, since it's a software product, they just ended up taking it away from everybody. If they can't get access, then nobody can get access. And hey, I'm just saying there was a lot of stuff going on in the White House getting deals between Anthropic and ChatGPT, and then something like this comes out, because even Anthropic was arguing, the same capabilities that the people found when testing this model, you can find it in other models. I'm pretty sure they name drop ChatGPT, but it's crazy to see just like the back and forth that's going on here, and it's going to be something. I guess I'll kind of get into it now, but it's just the fact that you can see now that we're slowly it's not slowly anymore, but we're really losing control of access to any type of software. I mean, right now it's AI, but they're selling you access and not the actual ownership of this. Now, we do have some different open source models, so that just looks like some things where you can actually download and run them on your own machine, which I recommend doing. I have some videos on how to set up Hermes agent, which is a good harness for those different models if you do want to run them. But if you can't just run it off of your own machine, then you have no idea when your access could get suspended. I mean, there's different things such as downtime, there's different restrictions. When we have, when they train these models to be safe and they're saying, hey, you're a helpful assistant, or you are whatever their thing is, it's hard to say exactly what helpful even means. I remember it might have been years ago now when Google image generation first came out. If you asked them to make a picture of founding fathers, then they would all be like people of color, when obviously that's not how the founding fathers of America looked like. But it was in their training and prompting to be so diverse, to be accepting of everyone, to represent people well. Even if you go to one of the models trained in China, one of the open source ones, and you ask it to create an image, that person is likely going to be Asian. And it's not saying that it's bad, but just based on the training in that country, you can see that the output may be different in this country. So it's just unintended consequences like that. And when you are so focused on training the models to do the right thing, it's very easy to fall into, some people are saying, like AI psychosis, just having AI think for you, and you're not even aware of what the companies are you know putting in the bias of these models, which is why I think it's so important that we fight to have open source models to keep them active. Because if we have other people dictating what's safe, what's not safe, what we can and can't use, then it has consequences like this. But we could keep going. That's for another video. So, Anthropic solution, again, turn it off for everyone. And people were going crazy for this. I had people asking, man, I don't know what happened. Fable, I was using it for this. I'm not sure when is it going to be back. And I'm trying to tell them, like, hey, it's not up to me. It's up to the government. I can't, I can tell you guys when it is back, but before then, I'm just a sit and duck like you all. And that's why it's so important to have backups, using different models, not just being on one, and just having different resources so this doesn't happen to you or your business. Yeah, people were even going spinning up websites like this. Let's go to it now. I guess it'll just say a big yes now. Let's see. It's back. But people were going crazy making these websites, seeing when here we go. Yeah, and like actually during this time, people didn't know when it was coming back. There were rumors. People were looking at the updates and the Anthropic code, seeing, okay, they have Fable listed in the notes. Maybe we can. So it was just all of these things. Now, here are the people who were actually able to keep their applications running during this time. People who had these fallbacks wired in, whether that's just outsourcing, like if you have a response and Fable fails, then you'll reroute to ChatGPT. Or if you have a local model, so maybe even if everything got banned from export, if you have something running off of your machine or at least a server within your business where you are running these models, and that's another way that it could have constantly stayed online. But there were some people, some vibe coders who just had things just all set up to Fable, and they were just kind of stalled. They were stuck and didn't know where to go. So it's just good to know exactly what you're building and making sure you do have fallbacks for situations like these. And that brings us to the 30th. The controls were lifted, and by July 1st, Anthropic was like, okay, we're bringing it back. We're giving it back to y'all. People started crying. Everybody started tearing up. And now it's back like it never left. And that brings us to July 1st when things were back online in the Claude app, Claude Code, platform, and co-work. So I'm going to explain like the 50% usage cap. That it kind of, the wording there kind of tripped me up a little bit. But essentially, if you have $10 that you can spend on every single model, you can only spend five on Fable. So yeah, if your models gets to, if all of your Fable usage is used up, and you can't use it even if you have 50% left. You have to use the other models like Sonnet or Haiku or whatever. You can't just use everything, like all of your usage on Fable. It's only half of it can be on Fable. So here are the takeaways. Now, we've we really are transitioning here in the regulation of AI. We're getting to the point where people are fearing AI, a lot of governments and a lot of, I guess, even individuals, man, like they're taking this stuff, I don't want to say more seriously, but they're putting more restrictions on the tools that you can and cannot use. That's why I'm really advising everyone to be looking at open source models, just seeing if you can. It's kind of hard because if people don't have the infrastructure like a PC that they can run this stuff on, it's a little bit difficult. But they have lightweight enough models now that you can run them off of different phones and even like a MacBook or computer there. But it's getting to a time that people can just take the models away from you. And now we're really seeing how that can affect people. So again, build for outages. If you are a developer, business owner, or whatever you're doing with these models, make sure you have a fallback, even if that's to another subscription that you have, or if you have maybe something like Hugging Face or I think it's Open Router, where you can have different models on one access key. Just make sure that you have different models with different fallbacks. Even in my Hermes agent video, they have, when you go to the model providers, you can choose a fallback one there. And from 19 days, and went from a national security concern and then right back to a $20 subscription. That just, you can just think of that what you will. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you have any other questions about just AI in general or how you can be using it for your business, feel free to meet with me. I have a link in the description and the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.